That is what defines inspiration to me as well. It's not just finding a new thing to grab onto, it's also finding new ways to deal with what you're already working on. Hey my loves, today I want to talk to you about inspiration and solitary witchcraft. So as a solitary witch without a particular traditional background, meaning I am an eclectic witch that draws from different traditions, different paradigms, some people also call that chaos magic, I do not have a set source of inspiration where I can just go, like the one book that I can look at, or the one person that I can listen to, or the one event that I can go to. You know, there are basically myriad possibilities, and I know that many solitary witches, I don't need to explain this, struggle with inspiration, because you are the only one who keeps yourself accountable. You have to be at the center of your craft. And if you move away from that center, if you are not the center of your craft anymore, then that can be very difficult. And it is equally wonderful to be the only one in your own shoes, in your witchy practice, who calls the shots, as it can be difficult because, as I said, you are the only one who is responsible for keeping yourself on track and keeping your spiritual practice on point. Now, I have identified two states in myself that I can be in with relation to my practice. The first state is that I am working on something specific. I have a focal point. For example, I want to learn about astrology and tarot, or I am doing a particular shadow work subject. For example, I am trying to resolve my fear of success, my fear of failure, my fear of helplessness. You know, all of that to me defines one thing that I am specifically working on and that I can take steps to improve and steps to get to know myself, get to know the subject that I'm studying, and just get into the flow of practicing spiritually. Whether it is through meditation, through reading a book about a certain thing, finding archetypes to work with, doing a spell regarding it, all of these pathways are open to me and I can kind of pick and choose because I am centered and I have an idea of what my goal is, what I'm trying to work on, you know. The second state is when I am unsure of what to do. I have lost my inspiration. Maybe I'm very content. I have no shadow work to do, at least none that I am conscious of. I'm maybe reading a few books at a time, but none of them particularly interest me or called me into their spell. So I'm not really focused on anything. That is the second state. Maybe I'm not even open to deep diving into a certain topic and to really get down into the mud with a certain focal point, as opposed to state one, where I know the general idea, the general concept that I'm working with, and can find all of the different perspectives from which I can look at that focal point at. In the second state, it's a lot more open. It's a lot more like, what could I work on? How can I find inspiration? And of course, there are tons of ways to do it. I want to give you a few of them in this video. And these inspirations also apply to when you are in stage one, where you have a focal point, but you're not sure where to continue. You know, that happens too. It's like, do I meditate? Do I do tarot? Do I talk to someone about this? Do I seek professional help about it? You know, there's so many avenues. Do I do a spell? Do I do a ritual? So kind of finding the next best thing on your path can also be very inspiring. And that is what defines inspiration to me as well. It's not just finding a new thing to grab onto, it's also finding new ways to deal with what you're already working on. The first thing I want to suggest is slightly divinatory in nature, which is random word generators. Basically, they are all over the internet. Just Google random word generator. I can also link one below. And it spits out a random word for you. Now, if you have absolutely no inspiration, you just have a word slapped in your face, and then you can write poetry about it. You can paint it if words aren't your thing. You could see how it relates to your life right now and think about that. You could write a poem to your goddess if you practice goddess worship, or you can just free write whatever comes to your mind. And usually it will lead you on a very interesting path. And at the very least, you've done a fun little exercise, even if nothing super deep, super spiritual comes from it. I actually had a very funny experience with a random word generator once. I wasn't asking for a sign, but when I did the random word generator, it spit out the word sign. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, if I had asked for one, then this would have been it. So I feel like these random word generators really do have a lot of potential, you know? And then I think once it spit out icicle, and I kind of related that back to what I was doing. And at first, you know, you think like, how am I going to relate this to anything? But everything is related. And that is the magic of this world, that everything is energetically linked, at least in my opinion. Do you know that contest that they do where you have to get from one random Wikipedia article to another random Wikipedia article in as few clicks from the links in the articles as possible? So for example, from the article about paper, you have to get to the article about Sigmund Freud or something. And then you have to kind of think like, which link in paper can I click that will eventually lead me to the Sigmund Freud article? And whoever does it within the least clicks or the least redirects kind of wins. And I think that that shows how related everything is in this world. A very mundane example, but I think, you know, there's magic in it. The second thing that I would call upon you to do is to trust into synchronicity, which means that if you state your openness to the messages of the universe, of your goddess, of whatever higher being you believe in, spirits, guides, then you will receive. You will find a weird pattern in your environment. You will suddenly find relations between everything in your environment. For example, I was thinking about my willow the other day. I have a small potted willow because willows are my soul tree. And I was thinking like, when is it time to put it outside? Then the next day my mother asked me like, oh, how's your willow? And I'm like, wow, that's a strange question. Okay, second time it came up. And then I was watching the Simpsons episode where Lisa skips school because she's sick or acts like she's sick after a few days so she can continue playing a certain video game. It's a fantastic, fantastic episode. And she is supposed to read a book for her school project, and it is called Wind in the Willows. And I'm like, there's the willow again, you know? If you stay open, I know that there's a name for that phenomenon, that once you think about something, you will see it everywhere, once you become conscious of it. But I think it is just a good way to kind of tune into what your subconscious wants you to know and what your subconscious wants you to see in the world that surrounds you. The third thing I want to suggest is cartomancy or bibliomancy. So you can do this with any random book, with tarot cards, or if you are very intuitively gifted, you could also scry with smoke, water, fire, stare into it until you see images. Personally, if I have a lot of time, I might scry, but if I want to be like very efficient and very, you know, to the point, then cartomancy and bibliomancy are easier. So even if you have no experience with tarot cards whatsoever, you can just take a random book, open it on a random page, or take a book that calls to you and open it on a random page. Read the paragraph, see how you relate to it. As you can see, a lot of these practices that I advocate for have a lot to do with synchronicity, with accepting sacred randomness, and kind of, you know, bringing energies into your life that you may have not seen coming, that you cannot necessarily control, and just being receptive rather than trying to box everything in and figure out what practice is most efficient to do now. It's a lot more open than that. So I guess maybe I could also title this video How to Be Receptive to the Messages of the Universe or something like that. Another fun thing that I actually made up for myself is Instagramomancy or Instagrammancy. I don't know what to call it, honestly, where I either go to a particular person's profile or a hashtag or just my feed and scroll with my eyes closed and then just land on something, click a post and read it. And I think that that is a very good way. If you don't have a book handy, maybe you're out of the house, maybe you just want some fun random thing thrown at you to inspire you what to think about. And I feel that it's very good for that because especially, for example, if you want to do something spiritual, you can just go to the spiritual hashtag to make sure that whatever you get is going to be somehow spiritually inspiring, you know, and tune you into your connection to whatever is up there. So I feel like Instagramomancy, I'm trying to make this a thing. I'm really trying to make this a thing. Can be very helpful just on the go, you know, because so many people put so much effort into their Instagram posts. They write stories, they write paragraphs upon paragraphs of inspiring things, even just quotes. And yeah, I think it's a good way to gain some quick inspiration, a little inspiration burger if you want to. Vegan, of course. The fourth thing that I want to mention that is super important is to be aware of the blockages that you may have. If you remember in the beginning of the video, I spoke about state 1, where you are focused on a certain subject, a certain thing you are studying, a certain psychological concept that you are working with on yourself, a certain spell you are learning or doing. And then we have state 2, which is about being unfocused and not really knowing what you're going to get into next, kind of seeing what's around and grabbing onto random things. Now, sometimes if I don't want to face whatever I am actually focusing on in state 1, I will slip into state 2. I will just forget that I had a focal point. I will throw it out. I will drop it. I will drop it like a hot potato and I don't know why. And that is the question. Why? You know, figuring out, is there some sort of subconscious fear or just switch that got flipped that is making me focus my attention on something completely different and throwing myself at something completely different, that I am running away from whatever my focal point was. You know, especially if you do shadow work, especially if you are tackling some really tough ass issues, you could slip into this behavioral pattern that you just find inspiration somewhere else and forget the thing. And you know, it's always good to keep an open mind. You can always look at a certain issue from a myriad of perspectives. But if you go into a completely different direction that is counterintuitive and counter to everything you're trying to work on, that's not good, obviously. So don't try to smother whatever you're trying to work on by finding new inspiration and getting distracted. Ask yourself, why am I not focused on whatever I was trying to focus on anymore? And oftentimes you could say, okay, I resolved it. I am done with it. Or I'm putting it on the shelf to examine later. And that's fine too. You don't have to go to the very bloody end with everything. But knowing the why of why you are dropping it, that is very important. Because otherwise you're just going to be treading in one spot. It's frustrating. It's just complete and utter bull crap if you can't move forward because you keep hindering yourself subconsciously and keep throwing yourself at different topics rather than staying focused. The fifth thing I want to say is maybe a little bit obvious, but watch videos to get inspired, listen to podcasts, read a book. To me, this is a very basic action that I sometimes forget about. I will just, watch useless things or watch things that don't inspire me, instead of really allowing myself to engage with things that could drive my practice to the next level or at least open a new pathway in my practice. Of course, Again, this comes with a warning. If you are in the unfocused state 2, that's fine. But if you're in state 1, you're very focused, and suddenly you start watching things about completely unrelated things, then you might want to think about why you're doing that. Of course, I'm not saying you have to spend every second of your life focused on whatever shadow work or studying subject you have at the moment. Of course, you need downtime. That's not what I'm trying to imply. You don't have to watch videos pertaining to your focal point at all times, but you should, not lose that focus completely, because that's what happens a lot with me. If you have practices that reliably and awesomely inspire you, please put them in the comments so everybody else can kind of learn from each other and just see what roads are open to them. Because so often when we are uninspired, it feels like all of the roads are blocked. We don't even allow ourselves to be open and receptive. We're just kind of like, whatever, and just don't spend spiritual conscious time anymore. So I think knowing as many practices to inspire yourself as possible and consciously doing them is a very worthwhile action. So please leave your favorite tools of inspiration, methods of inspiration below. I'm going to link 2 videos below, by the way, that also have some advice about this easy witchcraft practices and a few new ways to use tarot in order to keep you inspired. You can just check those videos out if you want to. Subscribe to me, dwell in my domain. And I want to say real quick that we are pretty close to 1,000 subscribers. And once we hit that, I am definitely going to do a giveaway very soon. So get your friends to subscribe if you want to, if they are interested in witchy topics. I think I will probably do the giveaway around beginning of March or mid-March, so look out for that. Thank you so much for watching, my souls. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I wish you the best of days, the best of weeks, and I'll see you all later.